Well, we're talking about, Salim, what it means to be a public uh, Christian leader that is served to called to serve in the world, and we're particularly looking at that through the lens of culture. And I think of all the conversations you and I have had around this while you were at Luther. You have
Mhm.
a very interesting story about living in the midst of many different cultures. So I thought you could start by telling us you didn't grow up in Minnesota. Where did you grow up and what was that like?
Yeah, I grew up in Tanzania. Was born and raised on the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro in a town called Moshi. Um, and I went to a private school there called the International School of Moshi, where a lot of the expatriate students and foreign diplomat
Mhm.
students went to school together.
Wow. All right,
Um,
so you're at Concordia and it's freezing and it's only October.
right,
And you come from a really international school.
right.
And Concordia has some international flavor, but not to the degree of your other school. What was that like, in addition to just being freezing?
Well, part of the way they do the international students program at Concordia, at least the way they did it when I was there,
Yeah.
they had an international student organization, and I still think they have one
Mm-hmm.
now. And
Yeah.
we did a lot of activities together, a lot of social events together. So we're almost like
Oh, yeah.
sequestered together,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we ate together. We often became friends with one another.
Yeah.
So even though I think when I think back, I had a lot of friends who were not a part of the international student community,
Yeah.
but a lot of international students didn't,
Oh,
and their
interesting.
the friendships were
Just
the
the
deeper friendships, at least, were
Yeah.
within that group. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's how
Well,
we cope. Yes. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Well, in addition to getting a degree from our shared alma mater,
Right.
what else did happen when you were there?
My wife cast a spell on me. I met my wife Katie there, but
Yep.
before that happened, I had a conversion experience
Mm-hmm.
where I converted from my faith of origin, which was Islam, to
Mm-hmm.
becoming a Christian,
Yeah.
and then more particularly being baptized in a Lutheran church,
Yeah.
and then starting to serve in youth ministry in a Lutheran church,
Yeah.
and realizing that the Lutheran theology best captures what I understand and how I understand God working in this world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So you had this conversion experience. You changed your faith, and that's a huge piece. Um,
Right.
you marry into, um,
I married a German Irish Bohemian woman.
yeah,
So, Czech. So the three heavy drinking societies of Europe all
all came
united
together.
into one woman. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And then you continued. You both served in ministry
Yes, and
in
Katie got her master's in
yeah,
children, youth, and family ministry from Luther also.
yeah.
Uh, and right now she's enjoying being a stay-at-home
I
mom.
mean, you have two non-traditional postures of serving in the ELCA. One is you didn't grow up Lutheran or even Christian, right?
Right.
Which is a more of a minority.
Uh-huh.
And you didn't grow up in this country
Right.
or
So as a
Norway or Germany,
yeah.
right? And so, what has it been like? I'll just open it up and you share. What has it been like to serve in a church where, on many fronts, you're a minority experience and see and have a lens that's maybe different than other people?
Um, it's been great. No. Well,
Well, a lot
the
of it
ministry
has.
the ministry within the congregation has been wonderful. The
Nice.
folks here took a chance.
Hmm.
The interesting thing about Modelia is that we're almost 30% Hispanic Latino
Yeah. Wow.
in this town, and our schools are almost 50-50,
Wow.
with like what they call non-English speakers,
Yep. Okay.
non-native English speakers,
50
and
50.
50-50. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's they have been around a lot of brown people.
Yeah. Yep.
But the other town that I serve, Lake Crystal, which is 11 miles from here towards Mankato,
Hmm.
their schools are almost like any suburban school where the diversity is limited to a handful of students, you know, and it's been a lot harder for me to get connected in that community. People are always a little suspicious on different things, but is that in Medelia we have two ELCA churches, Missouri Synod Lutheran Church, Catholic Church, uh, Presbyterian Methodist, Church of Christ,
Wow.
E-Free,
Wow.
Assembly of God.
Wow.
So we have 7 churches in our small town.
Yeah.
The person who holds our ministerial group together
Yeah.
is a Missouri Lutheran Church pastor.
Wow.
And he will do stuff with our group, but he won't participate when we're leading, and when they're hosting, we can't participate. You know, part of their polity.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he cherishes the relationships that he has with us.
That's great.
We count each other, so it's good.
That is a good thing. All right, Salim. So we've had a chance to talk about your growing up and your, entering into ministry and serving where you are now. As you think about now, talking back into when you were in seminary or when your colleagues were there, from where you are now, what are some things that you hope for, both for the church, ELCA and otherwise, and for us as leaders, as we think about our call to the world and called to serve in our context, and thinking specifically about being more culturally aware?
Right. Well, I think the big thing is we can stop telling those Sven and Oli jokes, right?
I'm with you there. No, I'm with you.
And there's nothing wrong in celebrating our heritage. I mean, we all do that. And I think part of the tragedy about being white in America is that there is for a lot of people, there are no roots to where that whiteness or the tradition comes from. Not whiteness, sorry. Yeah. The tradition comes from. Yeah. Like I wish people would, around here, people do celebrate, like Lake Crystal is a big Welsh community. So they have a Welsh, cultural things that go on there. Medelia has a lot of Norwegians and stuff. And in our area down here, we have a lot of like lutefisk feeds or big Scandinavian things. But to remember that is not the heart of our church if we're going to move forward, right? Yeah. Like we were the only church in town that had Bienvenidos on our welcome sign. And I had a trustee ask me, so is it okay if we take down that welcome Mexican sign? And I was like, welcome Mexicans? What do you mean? It's like, oh, Bienvenidos, or whatever it was. He didn't know how to pronounce it. So that doesn't say welcome Mexicans. It just says welcome. And to be aware of the fact that the everything you do has to be intentional. You can't assume that people know who you are or that they will be welcomed. Right. What happens if a Spanish-speaking family walks into your church? Do you know the people in the church who can speak Spanish, who can sit with them, help interpret or whatever? And these are opportunities that I have missed out on because we've had, in the beginning, we had a handful of Spanish-speaking families that came, but then never came back because everything was in English and I didn't know how to interpret it for them. So if you have, I would say every pastor should learn another language because it's not by going to the country, it's not by saying, oh, I visited there or I have friends from there, but it's not until you speak the language of the people that you can really get to the heart of who they are. And that was something that Nelson Mandela said, that if you want to talk to somebody and have them understand, if you want to talk to somebody and touch their mind, talk to them in a language they understand, right? Nice. But if you want to touch their heart, speak to them in their language.
Nice.
Having intentional parts or even announcing where you are in the service so that if someone is visiting, they know where to go. They don't just assume that, and like there are things that I say to people every week, and they look at me, why do you keep saying this? So on the off chance that once, maybe in the next 5 years, someone comes who's not from a Lutheran church, they'll know where we are.
Nice.
And they don't feel silly kind of being lost in service.
Yeah.
So culturally, I think we need to be adapt, and we need to adopt, and we need to be flexible. We can't impose our culture on other people. We need to change the culture of the church without changing individual cultures. So if you have Norwegians and you have Hispanic people and you have Africans, maybe your church service should reflect a bit of each one of those cultures,
right,
rather than just the dominant one, right?
Right.
And the other thing is to kind of acknowledge that we all have our own biases. So, it's not to say that only white people are racist or black people are racist. We all have our racial biases.
Yeah.
And those tie into cultural biases too, and we have to understand where our hiccups are and speak the truth of who we are. We don't have to confess in front of the world, but we need to know for ourselves. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Because if somebody I told somebody, if somebody walks in with a cowboy hat, a big belt buckle, a shirt with the rebel flag on it, and cowboy boots, I'm not going to feel comfortable talking to them.
Yeah.
But they have walked into my church.
Yeah.
So I don't have a choice but to welcome them as they are.
Yeah.
Because if that is truly what we're saying, come as you are, then we have to meet them with their prejudice, with their bias, with their uncertainty, because Christ overcame all of that.
Yeah.
So,
Salim,
hopefully that's helpful.
Very well said. And I will say this to you publicly with this audience watching. It has been a joy to watch you grow as a leader, as you've been sometimes forced to be a voice for something you didn't choose, but also for you to, with graciousness, teach us all, right? As you've lived in between many, many cultures all of your life, and religious cultures, right? Different religious practices and cultures too. As I think what a gift you are to the church today, and to help us continue to rethink what this is that we're moving into as the church, and the call, like you said, to welcome people, and to be as we hit those hard points, to be willing to look at ourselves, right?
Right.
And just say, all right, what does this mean as a Christian public leader? And God, I'm uncomfortable, but I'm going to go, or I'm going to lean into that. Yeah.
For example, after this latest political cycle, I know that over half of my parish voted for the person who is in office now.
Right.
And I remember after the election results how, to be honest, scared and nervous I was.
Yeah.
But I had to remember that I love these people before the election. Right. I need to do the same after the election, despite who they voted for.
Right.
But I don't change the truth of who I am. And so I speak as, I'm an American citizen now, but I'm only a couple of years removed from being an immigrant.
Right.
Or I'm still an immigrant, but being a documented or whatever immigrant. And to speak to the hurt that I experience when I hear the rhetoric from our politicians. And the people, maybe they don't like it, but they'll have to get over it. I'm speaking, I'm being honest to where I am, So that's what's important, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah,
and
you.
Blessings to you and your family in your ministry. So
thank you very much.
Awesome.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Elton.
Take care.